Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us. In the middle of some breaking news, we're going to begin our show with the wave of pro-Palestinian protests at college campuses across the country. The demonstrations are calling for an end to the war in Gaza and for schools to stop doing business with Israel and companies that support Israel. They are some of the biggest to hit college campuses since the Vietnam War protests of the 1960s.
At the University of Wisconsin-Madison yesterday, police swept through an encampment and tore it down in a forceful confrontation with protesters. Dozens of people were arrested there. But the big breaking news this morning is happening right now at UCLA. Police in riot gear have started moving in on a protester encampment and dismantling it. Police started massing overnight after issuing protesters with an order to disperse. This comes after counter-protesters attacked the pro-Palestinian camp late Tuesday night. Police were criticized for being too slow to try and stop the violence.
The life-threatening assault we faced last night is nothing less than a horrifying, despicable act of terror.
During the 6-hour period in which I was attacked, the police stood by on the sidelines and watched as me and my fellow protesters were maced, were struck with heavy plastic cones, were struck with rocks, were struck with batteries, and were struck with firecrackers.
In a few moments, we're going to hear from Annika Bereni. She's the special pages editor for the University of Wisconsin-Madison student newspaper, the Daily Cardinal. But before that, let's get to what's happening right now. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is at UCLA, which is currently in the middle of a very tense face-off between police and protesters. This has been developing over the last 1 or 2 hours. Steve, what's the situation like right now? Obviously, the flashbang grenades going off in the background. What are you seeing and hearing?
Flashbangs and gas, Joe. I would call this now less of a confrontation and more of a demolition. Police are chewing through this camp like a bulldozer. If they confront protesters inside, those protesters are going down and being detained. We are watching it happen in real time. The police line has formed here. It is pushed this way. If you see any wood planks, that means police haven't gotten it to it yet. They've been deploying what appears to be some sort of gas, an irritant into the air as they fire flashbangs continuously. You see the blinking lights inside there, police in full riot gear using what appear to be some sort of pellet rifles as well in case there are agitators in the crowd. But the essential operation is happening, which is to destroy and dismantle this encampment, which has been here now for almost a week, piece by piece. And we're watching it happen. Protesters are on the outside of this, on the edges. You can see them sort of in Royce Hall, also the library behind me, which sort of contains people who are looking down at what's happening, but they have little in the way of power as police have sort of wedged their way inside. And they did it by coming right over the top of this. This has been almost a solid wall of wooden planks since we've been here, and certainly since police have started gearing up, so too have the protesters, sort of fashioning, wooden shields, using hard hats to try to battle back as these, flashbangs continue to go off. Police went almost right through that. They did issue, I want to say, fair warning, not only signaling on social media, obviously posturing as if they were going to go in, but in loudspeakers continuously, as they are happening right now, saying, we are coming in. If you are in, you will be arrested. This was declared unlawful even before those counter-protesters came and sort of sparked all of this. But now it has been declared unsafe. And that is the reason why police are now doing what they're doing. As we see now police sort of on the edges. We're looking at a new development here. Police now see this huge wave moving inside. It looks like they're going to tackle it now from end to end as they sort of just rip in and rip this encampment down. But this has been happening, I would say, for about the better hour at this point, as agitants in the crowd around the university have been pushed out as well. This just continues to be a continuous police action, guys. Back
Steve, this may be difficult for you to see or estimate, but any idea number of protesters as well as number of law enforcement? Can you tell at all?
It's almost impossible to tell because of how fluctuating the numbers are, right? Like there used to be watch this, here we go. Look at this. Rushing apparently inside. I think they're just going to pull this wall down all of a sudden. Hard to tell, Savannah, how many protesters are still inside, how many are on the edges, how many police there are, because there are multiple agents that have been responding to this. You know, we've seen state police, we've seen the highway patrol back up there. Wall down, guys. It's live. The highway patrol has been here. The sheriff's department, some acting in more of a security role, some acting, of course, as a main sort of vanguard, which is to sort of cut their way inside here. We're going to back up. They're about to peel this wall down. I think they're going to push. They're either pushing or pulling, guys. But no, it's almost impossible to tell how many protesters, too, because I swear I've seen almost the detention at least every few minutes, if not every minute. Police are just literally pulling people out of the crowd that remain inside. Obviously, their main action, their main objective is to do what they're doing now, guys. Back to you.
Steve, your colleague Liz Kreutz reporting that some protesters are at least being detained. We know they brought buses onto the campus. You mentioned some of these demonstrators, they have helmets. We've seen they have goggles on. It shows that they were prepared for perhaps some sort of confrontation with police. And it also suggests something that we've seen at universities all across the country, which is that these are not all students. These are these so-called outside agitators who've come in. Has that been the narrative there at UCLA, the feeling that a lot of people from the outside, whether they're anarchist groups or others, have come in and taken over these encampments?
I just want to pause for a minute just to look at the unbelievable nature of this scene. They're firing flashbangs literally right above us now into the crowd. This sort of action of pulling this encampment apart happened all in one swift motion. Sort of amazing to be here to witness this on this end. The other end, it was sort of a slow, meticulous chewing through the encampment. This was very, very swift. As far as your question about outside agitators, we had a security guard that did a test, which is she knew where the commissary was. One of the students, she kept asking people, where do I go? Half of the students or half of the people in this crowd couldn't answer the question because they didn't actually go to the university. I think it is fair to say that at least, you know, we don't have numbers, never had numbers on how many people inside were students and how many weren't. But I think it is fair to say a fair bit come from the outside and a fair bit have told us so. Guys, maybe
Steve,
hard to hear us right now.
Actually, we can hear you quite clearly, but of course your safety is paramount, so let us know if you need to move or get to a different location at all. Steve, from what you are hearing from law enforcement as well as what you're seeing, do you believe, is the goal here from law enforcement, is the stated goal or the perceived goal to kind of get rid of this encampment at some universities? Like, for example, in Wisconsin yesterday, the school police was saying, we are acting on the fact that it is unlawful to have these encampments here. This camping gear has to go away, versus really bringing tensions down between two groups of protesters and then counter-protesters. Right now, is this to bring tension down, or is this to get rid of this encampment altogether?
Well, obviously, they are getting rid of the encampment, but I think sort of it is the chicken and the egg situation. It is one solves the other. It is the fact that this has been such a core source of contention, and it does attract sort of the other element of counter-protesters. You know, the UC system, UC California, you know, they operate multiple schools across the country, multiple schools across the state, I should say. And many of them have had minor encampments, things like this tent now coming. Look at this tent now being pushed over the edge. It's amazing to see this because we've been watching this build up for so long. So now we're watching it sort of get ripped down in real time and exposed. It's quite amazing. The stance from the university and the university system has been to let this happen. You know, this is free speech. These are students who want to exercise their right to speak out on an issue that they find important. The university has let that happen. I think it was when the element of safety to the other students on campus. And that night with the counter-protesters was so dangerous, talking to students that had nothing to do with these actions whatsoever. Just the fear palpable to walk by and see that, to know that this is happening right next to your residence hall or your dorm or your study hall. I think it was just too disruptive to students. Classes, of course, had to be canceled. That people had to reroute around this. This is like one of the main quads on campus. You know, the library, Royce Hall. It's just too disrupted, and I think they were worried about public safety. And frankly, you know, I think a lot of people sort of understood that because of how big the footprint of this was too. You have to understand, this kept growing. This never stopped growing until right now, guys.
So, Steve, we know a number of the demonstrators have dispersed. Some have been detained. Do you get a sense right now, are there many remaining at the encampment, any making a last stand, or does it seem like police kind of have control of the situation as they try and dismantle this camp?
You know, from my perspective, and I don't have a complete perspective, obviously, Joe, the police have really, you know, infiltrated, made their way in. If there are any, and I can hear them, of course there are people screaming. I can see some of the elements of protesters pushing back against police. We can kind of go up to the blind a little more with the down. Into the crowd, you may be able to see some of the elements of protesters still inside. You can hear them. Some of them still have loudspeakers. Some of them still wearing masks to cover their face. But I, honestly, from my vantage point now, most of what I see are helmets. Most of what I see is Kevlar and helmets and hearing flashbangs. Police appear to have a full command of this scene, but I can't see how deep this camp goes. And I don't know what the element is on sort of the outskirts and what the response may be. But it was very swift, very forceful, very sudden and shocking. I mean, just the, you know, you've seen me sort of react to these flashbangs as I'm talking to you. There goes another one. It's hard to keep a mental focus when you hear this. So I think just the sort of the shock and the awe, which is always sort of the situation in which they want to do as much as they can in such a small window to minimize any casualties, to minimize anybody that could get hurt. And I think they've done that pretty effectively, guys. Back to you.
Steve, you touched on canceled classes, but just give us an idea of what this has meant for the day-to-day operations for UCLA and for students who are not part of these protests.
You know, I think it's changed sort of student life entirely. And I say that because obviously of classes being canceled, classes now going online, you know, employees working from home, this has become, you know, the source of really international attention. I mean, there are British reporters here. I've seen reporters from all over the world who are right here on campus focusing on this just one thing. That being said, you know, yesterday I took a walk just sort of outside of this protest area. There are parts of campus that you would never even know this was happening were it not for the helicopters that are constantly buzzing around. But I do think that weighs heavily on you. Imagine being a student here and knowing that this is happening at all times. I think it's a huge disruption to students who are here. And we've heard that obviously from students as well, but also who are worried about their communities. Some others, of course, proud of the actions being taken, proud that this is one of the first universities to have an encampment like this, to raise this issue as much as the student and as passionately as the students have here. But is it a distraction? I mean, I think, of course, guys. Back to you.
All right, Steve Patterson, we appreciate your reporting. We're going to ask you to stand by while you continue to stay safe, and we'll check back in with you as there are developments there at UCLA this morning.
Jan will certainly keep some of this video up throughout the morning. Let's now bring in Annika Bereni for more on the protests that broke out on the University of Wisconsin campus yesterday. We brought you those images live, and Annika is a senior reporter for the Daily Cardinal, a student newspaper at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Annika, good morning. Hopefully you can hear us. So walk us through what happened on campus during the clash between protesters and police. We know you have this sort of unique experience of being both a journalist but a student. Tell us what you saw, how tensions rose so quickly.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having me. So
I arrived at Library Mall, which is where the encampment is, around 5:45 a.m. And at that point, there was, I think, one news camera, but it was very quiet. It was very peaceful. Most people were still asleep. And then at one point, I think I was working on the Daily Cardinal, which is the paper that I write for. We are providing live blog updates, and we have been for the last 3 days. Around the clock coverage, like 18 hours we've been working. But at one point I'm writing a blog update and I hear a whistle, and it's one of the protesters because they've been keeping watch. And they say, "Wake up, everybody, the cops are here." And so immediately I shoot up. I text everyone else in the newspaper. I say, "We need people on the ground to cover this." And the cops, they just kept coming. And so there were 3 different types of law enforcement that we counted. There was the Wisconsin State Patrol, there was the Sheriff's Department, and there was the UW Police Department. And so I think the videos you're showing right now really show the absolute chaos that it was. There was just law enforcement everywhere. They were pushing back on protesters. Protesters were doing their best to keep their tents up, and there was shoving to the ground. I know I saw a couple of protesters bleeding from the head. And it was just chaos all around. And especially, you mentioned as a student journalist, it's kind of this unique place where you are deeply part of the community that you're covering. And so the people I was seeing detained, the people I was seeing being shoved by cops, they were people that I've had classes with. They were my friends. They were my professors. I saw a couple of my professors there, and I saw them just being shoved by cops while they had their arms linked with others. And so that was just pretty jarring, I think, as a student, but also as a journalist, where you're standing there, you're recording what's happening, but at the same time, these are people that you know, and these are people that you have relationships with. And so it's really tough.
Annika, UW-Madison has a rich history of protest, of peaceful protest, and you kind of got that sense yesterday hearing from university officials who said, listen, we want these students to be able to protest. We just don't want the encampment. We don't want the tents. Shortly after police cleared out that encampment, it looks like students set it right back up again. So are there concerns there could be more clashes with police moving forward? What do things look like from this moment on?
Yeah, and I can speak to that actually because I study history at UW-Madison, and one of the things that I'm interested in is specifically our school's protest history. And so sit-ins have been a common form of protest throughout the university's history. In 1967 with the Dow chemical protests, there was a sit-in in what was then Commerce Hall, what is now Ingram Hall, and that was also met by just brutal beatings by the police. And these are the kinds of things that the university looks back on and says, this is part of our history. But at the same time, it's absolutely saying beating these protesters back in 1967 was not right at all. And then the other thing that I wanted to speak to is specifically the rule, UW Statute 18. And the Daily Cardinal, we did a story about this last week where we really looked through the statute, and it actually says you can't picnic camp makeshift shelters unless authorized by the chief administrative officer, which in this case is the chancellor of the universities in the University of Wisconsin system. And so Chancellor Mnuchin, we identified in our story, could be authorizing these encampments, but she hasn't. And so that's what led to the clashes with the police yesterday. Whether we expect to see more clashes, I think as the Daily Cardinal, we've been monitoring today since 5:30 in the morning. It's currently almost 6:30 here in Madison, but we are expecting to see more police presence. There's been a pretty constant police presence around campus, or around Library Mall specifically, but I think 2 tents were left yesterday. There was 37 in the morning when I counted. 2 were left after the police had gone, and within hours, 14 more were back up. And so I think as protesters keep putting up tents, they're standing their ground. They're saying, police presence, police shoving, as the videos are showing, and detainments even are not going to stop their solidarity with the people of Gaza.
Annika Bereni, thank you very much for sharing your experience as a student as well as your reporting. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Jim Kavanaugh for more on what we are seeing at UCLA and really all across the country. Jim's also a retired ATF special agent in charge. Jim, your thoughts on what we're seeing here on UCLA. Is this what you were expecting we would see in the near future?
Yes, I mean, I think that the university there let things really go too far with all the encampment, the pallets, the plywood. I mean, they brought in fortifications. And, you know, at some point, it's going to have to be people leave or be arrested. And that's what's happened. You saw the California Highway Patrol moving in earlier, and now LAPD has got a section there where we're looking at now. That's the LAPD. So they have plenty of officers, and they're all outfitted in appropriate gear for civil disturbance. And they have a lot of officers. They can handle it. You know, it's a contrast to what we just saw in Madison. You know, we have policemen in Madison there with no helmets, baseball hats, and not enough officers. And that's why it gets into a melee. That's not the way to handle it. I mean, I think we're seeing a more professional response here in LA, just like we did from the NYPD at Columbia University. You have to have a large contingent of officers, a large contingent to be able to deal with it. And also, there have to be consequences for the actions of people who engage in violence or, you know, won't follow the law of the university and the state. If there's no consequences, then everything grows. If you're not expelled for the behavior or arrested, then everything grows. So there's got to be a line where you can protest, and then, you know, when you start building barricades and shooting policemen with fire extinguishers and throwing spears or whatever out of wood and all these things they're doing, you know, then you have to be expelled for those things, or fired if you're a professor, or arrested if you're not a student. So when there's no consequences, you know, then it grows. And so now, certainly in UCLA, they have to move in and make mass arrests. Just in closing, we're a nation of 340 million people. And I think we should keep that in mind when we look at even the crowd at UCLA. If you see a shot from a drone or a helicopter, you know, there's not hundreds of thousands of people there in the encampment. And how many there are hardcore? You know, the ones with the helmets and the masks and, you know, wielding the sticks and the fire extinguishers. Look at that number of hardcore battle bots, I would say, who want to battle with the police. When the police say you're free to leave now or you'll be arrested, a number of protesters who are not outfitted as battle bots, they'll walk away. They're real protesters. They're not there to battle the police. And yet we have a smaller faction. You know, we try to estimate the number just at UCLA. You know, is it 100, 200? It's not in the thousands. And so when those people get arrested or expelled or fired, the consequences then dampen everything down. So just to close, the reason there's not a giant crowd outside of the Trump trial in Manhattan doing the same thing is because there was consequences for January the 6th. And 1,000 of those followers of Trump were in jail for violence at the Capitol. That's why they're not outside the trial. And the same would be true here. No consequences, it'll grow. Consequences, it will fade away.
Jim, walk us through the tactics that we've seen so far from police on UCLA's campus that we were seeing and hearing as our colleague Steve Patterson was reporting, the flashbangs, the blinking lights we can see right now, the gas, and tell us the types of tools that police are using and what the end goal is when deploying those tactics.
Right, Savannah. I haven't seen him deploy any gas, maybe some pepper ball, but the officers are not outfitted with gas masks, so they're not deploying gas heavily here. When they do deploy gas, they all have to don gas masks too, and that's an encumbrance on the officers as well. So they try to avoid that if possible. They do have sting ball rounds. They do have, you see them with shotguns that are painted orange. Those are beanbag rounds. It's less lethal stun ball or pepper ball or beanbag, and it hurts when it hits, but it's not going to kill you if it's shot from the proper distance and at your body. You don't shoot someone in the face with it, but they're trained on how to deploy those. They're using flashbangs probably to, push crowd back if they're surging forward or something, and those aren't going to hurt you either. I've had many of those go off near me, and they're not going to hurt you unless you're just, laying on top of it. But what they're doing here is the slowness of the police response to move in like this and then start grabbing and arresting people is what's going to dampen it down. You see, they've removed the barricades. Last night I was on, Savannah, and there was a lot of talk about barricades from students and witnesses and so forth about all these barricades. And you see these barricades. Last night I said, this is not going to stop the police. The barricade is really not in there. I mean, it's nothing. It's a Maginot Line. They'll go around it or rip it off, rip it down. So that's a false sense of security from the protesters. Just like NYPD went into the second floor in Columbia University with the SWAT bear truck and the hydraulic ramp. I mean, they just went around the barricades on the first floor. So they can do all that. The issue today for the police, and here's the California Highway Patrol Special Operations Unit. That's what you see there. That's their tactical unit. And, it's a university, California University, so California Highway Patrolmen are front and center here, too. And they're going to be wanting to make arrests here. And they're going to start grabbing these people. It's probably going to be a little pulling and tugging matches, but they're going to grab these people and pull them out of here and arrest them.
Jim, I want to ask you about a term we've heard a lot this week from mayors and police chiefs around the country. That's these outside agitators. I know years of covering protests, especially on the West Coast, it's something you witness firsthand, whether it's parades or protests where suddenly groups dressed in black with masks emerge, tensions rise, the goal is confrontation with police, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. Talk about who these outside agitators are, what their goals are, how much more we're seeing this in places really all around the country.
Right, Joe. Well, they're real anarchists in America. They've always been there. We've seen them almost in every civil disturbance. And what they do is they latch on to the event of the day. So if it's, Occupy Wall Street, these guys will come in and want to foment violence, where most of the people are not trying to do that. But yet they will try to, attack the police. And we saw a lot of that in Portland and Seattle. After the George Floyd murder, we saw the protests across the country largely peaceful, but we do see these anarchists who come in and try to exploit that when you have basically a civil rights movement, welling up in response to the murder of Mr. Floyd, and then these anarchists try to start the violence. So it's not even Gaza for them. I mean, it's just they want to violence. They want to overthrow the government, the order. They want to fight police. They want chaos. They live for the chaos. Now, their numbers are not really that large, so we got to also keep it in focus. I'm sure some of them are present there, as they were in the New York City event. And we'll see. The police will be able to identify them. They're known, most of them, to the intelligence units. And once the arrests are made, they'll be able to see, who's real and who's Memorex. But it's all going to depend on the behavior of the protesters with the police. Are they going to submit to arrest? I mean, like the civil rights protesters of the 60s era, and who, would submit to the arrest. They do a sit-in, at the lunch counter, and they were arrested. Okay, well, that's a peaceful arrest. They're making civil disobedience. They know they're going to be arrested, but they're not trying to, attack the officers. So there's a line. There's a line where violence and property destruction and, happen. And to one side of that is the legitimate protests, and to the right of that is criminal activity. So that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the First Amendment in action right here, and we're seeing it when it crosses into criminal activity. It's not an unlimited right. No right is unlimited in the Constitution.
Jim, what's your assessment of how this is going on UCLA's campus right now? A little less than a half hour ago, it seemed more intense, of course. That's when we were hearing those flashbangs and seeing the police actually physically move in. Right now, what's your assessment of how this is going?
Very professional from the side of law enforcement. That we have the three major law enforcement entities in California: the California Highway Patrol, their Special Operations Unit, which you see right here, the LAPD, and the LASD, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. So these are all very large departments, and they have the ability to, bring in a big contingent of officers is what you need. And the juxtaposition that against what you see or saw on the campus at Madison, a handful of officers, no helmets, no baseball hats, getting into a fight where there's thousands of people. That's not a tactic that's going to help you. And then the other visual was, maybe 25 officers standing in a circle with shields around them. It's not going to do anything either. It's going to encourage people to say, we're stronger than the police. We can do what we want. We can keep them bottled up. We can surround them. We can push them back. So the police, I always say to officers when we train and talk is, police should not ever get angry, never be emotional. We as police are the state. We are the law. So we have to operate with no emotion, with no, anger. We just have to operate on an even keel, and we don't take threats. Threats we deal with. We work methodically and slowly to enforce the law without fear or favor, and only use enough force necessary to effect the arrest. And that's what I think we're seeing right here. This is really professional law enforcement at its best in California right now. And if they keep up this cadence, just like they're doing, look at this highway patrol officer here, who's, just has handcuffed a person, is putting an ID on the back so they know who they are, who the officer was, or taping them up. So, this is the way it's supposed to be. We do have students I've seen in the last few days, well, we're mad because the police are here. Well, it's hard. How do we fix that? If there's violence, if you're being attacked, and then the next thing out is, well, we're being attacked and the police didn't come, but we're mad the police are here. So these are kind of, things that don't balance out. We're going to have law enforcement in a democratic society. There's a trooper leading two protesters away. And that's the way it's supposed to happen. So very good so far. I think it will continue this way in California.
Jim, it is May. School will be winding down in the next few weeks at universities around the country. What do you think universities and police can do moving forward to try and strike the right balance of free speech, but also avoiding scenes like this from playing out day after day?
Yeah, I think you do have to really not let encampments get big. I mean, in UCLA, they're carrying in pallets. I mean, look at the number of pallets and pieces of plywood and things that have been carried in there. That stuff is all hand carried in there. They're not driving vehicles up to that quad. They're walking in with giant pallets and wood. You can't allow that. You've got to stop that. You really shouldn't allow the tents either. Protest, but you can't camp. And if you stop that, in its nascent stages with enough officers and just keep that stuff out. Also, people are walking in supplies and food. They're carrying in, cases of water, big baskets of food. You shouldn't be allowing all that stuff to go in there. You can go in there and protest, but you can't come in here with, all this stuff to live here. And you got to stop that earlier, because then it becomes harder for people to stay. I mean, they can't stay. They've got to eat. But if they're in there barbecuing and eating, then, you know, they're not going to want to leave. So you've got to kind of damp that down early. And also you have to have consequences. No consequences, it's going to build. And, you know, the students can make a decision. Okay, if you stay, if you bring that in and we identify you, you're expelled. Professor, if you do this, you can protest, you can yell and scream, but if you intimidate other students or do these other things, then we're going to fire you. And or you'll be arrested if you're not a student. So when the consequences are known and they're clear, then people will act accordingly. Some will still get fired and expelled and arrested, but it'll be a much smaller number, and you'll be able to deal with it.
Jim Kavanaugh, your expertise always welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, I feel we may be speaking with you again this morning. Thanks for your time. We're now going to listen in to KNBC. That's, of course, our Los Angeles affiliate, as we continue to monitor these clashes on campus. Let's listen in.
From UCLA, right now, the chancellor of UCLA, the chief of police of the university, and we have Karen Beck is now watching this all take, and we are told that no media will be granted access, and there won't be interviews, and there won't be a breakdown of what you are watching right now until this is over. And this in over means that officers are all safe, and everyone who has not agreed to leave voluntarily has been taken into custody. So the leaders of this university, the leaders of this university's police department, and the leader of this city are watching this now take place. And again, according to sources inside of the LA, this is going along as they had planned. It is, quote, stable right now.
Robert, we're having some audio issues with your microphone there, so we'll check back in with you shortly. But thank you very much for that update and that new information.
Yeah, so now we're going to check in with Anastasia Olmos. Anastasia, any new developments from your standpoint? What's happening there now?
So we've walked pretty much the perimeter of the encampment, but on more of the outskirts where officers aren't necessarily. So we're on the other side of the stairs right now, kind of the back side of the encampment. And we did find that CHP is blocking the entrance over here to get on the side of this would be the library and the Royce Hall. And so protesters are now gathering in front of them. This would be about 50 of them, and they are chanting, "Where were you yesterday?" Insinuating that officers weren't here when the fights had broken out, and these pro-Palestinian protesters, you know, claimed that they were attacked by the pro-Israeli protesters, and so they're chanting right now. But this is really a more peaceful side over here than what we have seen on the other sides of the encampment, where we've seen people arrested. They're pushing back, they're cursing at officers, and putting lasers in their eyes, and then we've seen some people hop the fence out of the encampment. So what we're going to try to do right now is, it seems like there is a vantage point to see what's going on, because there's a lot of people watching. So what we did is we tried to come on this side over here. What we're going to take you with my photographer, Joel, and we're going to walk up and kind of see if we can get a different view. There are a lot of protesters standing on the side of the stairs, and just kind of waiting around to see what's going to happen on this side. As you can see, they've created this barrier with plywood around the encampment on all sides. And as we saw on the other side, that's where law enforcement kind of started to tear it down. But on this side, we haven't seen any law enforcement do any sort of tearing down. It seems that they're moving from one direction. My photographer right now, he is very dedicated to getting a look from this angle. So if you just stay with us, we do have our own security guard with us as well. So we are trying to stay safe out here. We have seen, as I mentioned earlier, at least 2 people leave the encampment injured. One was limping. The other, her hand was injured. And so now he's going to give you a viewpoint of what he can see as of right now. This is the backside of the encampment where law enforcement is moving through. And And so we'll probably send it back to you guys in studio because it's not working as well as we thought it would. But we'll send it back to you.
I know it's a little chaotic out there. It's dark. It's tough to see. But quick question for you. Just wondering, is this a completely separate group of protesters, or is this a part of the group that sort of broke apart as we saw the officers moving in on the encampment?
You know, when those flashbangs started and the crowd started running, it's hard to tell where these protesters went. So some of them stayed in front of the lines of CHP that were pushing forward in riot gear. Some of them took off. And so we did see some people come from the side of the encampment and walk around and join protesters. And so I believe that this side from yesterday, they had their own crowd on the side of the stairs. I remember those aerial images of the detectives, deputies, patrol cars. That was on this side. It was much more peaceful, but there were thousands of protesters over here. And so I think that really they have been surrounding the encampment this whole time, especially when they stopped letting people into the encampment in the last couple hours. Their only option was to be out here to support those that are inside. And this is the more peaceful side as of right now. We haven't seen any clashes with law enforcement. We haven't seen any arrests or anything like that. We're just seeing, as of right now, some chanting towards CHP officers, but absolutely no violence on this side. We'll send it back to you guys.
Thank you, Anastasia. So from that vantage point, you can see people are being peaceful. Now we want to check in with NBC 4's Lauren Coronado, and she is seeing law enforcement make more arrests or detain more people. Lauren, good morning.
For the last few minutes, you've been listening to coverage from our NBC affiliate in LA, KNBC, who've been covering the protests taking place at UCLA as police have gone in to break down those encampments.
That's right. And now we're going to get back to our own Steve Patterson, who is also on the campus of UCLA. Steve, this is actually quite a juxtaposition from what we were just seeing on KNBC on the other side, it seems, of this protest, where it did seem quite peaceful. It seemed quite quiet. When we spoke with you about 40 minutes ago, that was when we were seeing police actually physically rush in, pull out those pieces of plywood, hearing those flashbangs. What are you seeing on the ground now?
Yeah, this is certainly, gotten to a point where I wouldn't call it peaceful on this side. We can walk in a little bit here. We're now inside the encampment, right? The walls have been broken down. The plywood is gone. It's a pile on the ground. Police have made entry. The last I spoke to you, it looked like police were we're going to back up. Yep, we'll back up. We'll back up. It appeared that police were sort of chewing through the camp at this extraordinary rate. And while that's true, certainly making their way in, forming a perimeter around here, that is not holistically true, because the core of it, as I've been able to go inside, it goes so much deeper than I imagined. There are tents way beyond the line of police that I'm looking at. And what's on the other side of this police line, as I try not to get hit by debris, are a line of protesters, right? I don't know how far we can push in. You might be able to see the white from hard hats back there. Those are protesters that have geared up, that have made makeshift shields, that have put on hard hats, and that are prepared to push back against police so they can't push any further into the encampment. How successful they'll be with how quickly police were able to make entry, not known at this point. Police have right now sort of formed a standstill, a line, as around sort of the edges. You can't see it like I can, but around the edges, police are just sort of piece by piece, again, continuing to tear this encampment down, sort of almost working their way around the edge and then moving toward the middle. They're now putting up you see the string that they're putting up here. I think police now sort of making their own border so the press and other people don't go inside. Or no, they're just cutting it down. So again, as police continue to push in, I think we're starting to see resistance from the protesters, the more hardcore element of the protesters, who have said no matter what, we're not leaving. Is it a rock, unmovable object and a force that keeps going? We don't know. We don't know what this is going to look like when police really decide that this is over. But I think we're closer to that situation than we are further away from it. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, so Steve, I mean, I guess that's kind of what we're bracing for at this point. Something's got to give, right?
Exactly that. I think since the call went out, it's not like police are going to go halfway in, right? The problem is that speaking to some of the protesters like I have, who have casually told me, no matter what, this is our home, we're not leaving. Where does that put us when this night has already started to go underway? And as quickly, again, I mean, I must say, you and I watched it, you and I guys sort of watched it live, how quickly they were able to tear through the first part of this and how quickly they're just pulling pieces out of this. I mean, and it's so unbelievable because, again, we've been sort of watching this encampment grow up. I watched it from a smaller footprint to a bigger footprint to sort of this fortress before police came in. And now it is sort of being taken down piece by piece very easily. It's just a matter of how hard I think police want to go against a force that is not going to budge. What does that look like? I think the people who were taken out initially were shocked by the flashbangs and the smoke. Others were probably students who were more here for the message and were more than happy to clear out. What happens with this hardcore element that has formed a line and looks like starting to push back against police here? You can see them sort of lining up. You can see the posturing from police. You can see the posturing from the protesters who are now, we've heard taunting, we've heard booing, we've heard jeering. Back from protesters who want them to leave. But we just don't know. We're here for it, guys. Back to you.
Steve, we had heard from our colleagues at KNBC just a moment ago that on the other side of this, where it was a little bit quieter, protesters were chanting, "Where were you yesterday?" She explained that as her understanding is that it was Palestinian protesters who claimed that they were attacked by these Jewish protesters and there was no law enforcement present. There's also generally been the criticism from students who are not involved in the protests at all that there wasn't law enforcement. Walk us through the timeline here leading up to police enforcement now, of course, actually being on the ground and entering the encampment.
Right. Well, I mean, you have to go back to that night where counter-protesters did come in, as you see police removing more from this encampment. The delineation there and the point of frustration from students is that fight between, and I shouldn't call it a fight because the university has sort of labeled it as more of an attack. This was protesters here in this encampment protesting peacefully, as they have been, frankly, and an element of counter-protesters coming in. That was 11 o'clock, 10:50 to be exact, that night when those counter-protesters came in. We've seen the video where they're literally firing fireworks into this encampment. You see how much plywood this place had, how dangerous that could be, how flammable of a situation that might be. And then pulling apart parts of the encampment, using those parts as weapons to sort of attack people inside here. Of course, the people fighting back. But the frustration was, where was the call out to get outside police forces on scene faster? Because by the time those other police forces were on scene, it had been hours. We're talking about 11 o'clock to the first police officers on scene, maybe around 1 o'clock, to the first areas of separation being made, maybe around 2 o'clock, to counter-protesters and protesters finally being totally separated by about 3:30 in the morning. So I think the frustration is understandable from people here who wanted to know why that happened. That, moved into the next day, which is those frustrations bubbling over. The university sort of posturing to say, this is less of a safe situation than we initially thought. We need to do something about this. That led to police posturing in a way in which, throughout the day yesterday, it went from police as a security force for the protesters, police as a watchdog for counter-protesters, police starting to gear up in riot gear, appearing to, after deeming this area unlawful, posturing to say that we're going to come in here eventually, and then leading to what's happening now, which is they're fully inside and taking this place down piece by piece.
And it sounds like we're hearing the flashbangs intensifying a little more here over the last few seconds there. Steve, you described this encampment as almost like a fortress. It's kind of hard for us to see because it's dark out. We're not there where you are. Can you give us any sort of sense of how big this encampment was, how much of an effort it is to try and take it down right now?
I truly can't, because I've never been able to see the inside of it from the middle, right? I don't, you know, I was just telling you how surprised I was that police were still going and taking it down, because I didn't realize how large it was. I thought I was watching the whole thing getting pulled apart. And really I wasn't, because of how big it is. It is a huge area, right? It's a big space. I don't know what the square footage is necessarily, and I don't know, even looking at it now, how deep it goes. What I can tell you is it's a fortress in by the way of how diligent the protesters have been of keeping people out. Like, the minute police have torn all of this down, you look back here and there's already new plywood. Like, they've created a new line against police. We can maybe kind of safely step inside here and show you, because they don't want anybody else entering. And I just don't know how deep that goes, but it is a lot, as now police continue to sort of poke a hole in and pull and remove tents from the inside out. But now, you know, maybe you can see in that back left corner more tents. Obviously, we've seen the aerial footage, but I can't give a sense of scale and scope, and more specifically, the numbers of protesters, because that has surged in and out, depending on the time of day, depending on, you know, how far along this process has gone. What I can say is the footprint has never, ever stopped growing until police have moved inside and started to squash it. Guys?
Steve Patterson, thank you so much for your reporting. Stay safe, stand by. We will come back to you throughout the morning. Let's now go back to NBC News law enforcement analyst Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, when we were just speaking with you probably about a half hour ago now, there had sort of been a lull, at least in the flashbangs. It seemed to sort of be calming down, and now we're hearing those again, as Steve described, as law enforcement sort of starts to make the circle around what he was calling those who are hardcore, who say that they are not leaving no matter what. He also noted at one point that it seemed that those who were members of the encampment, these protesters, were beginning to push back against law enforcement at one point in time. Is this to be expected, these waves of sort of it seeming calm and then picking back up again? And as this does turn into this tighter circle, what do you expect to see?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, well, I think what I think what they're going to try to do is isolate. They're shaping their battlefield here. The police are shaping the battlefield. They're getting the nonviolent protesters, the ones that are not dressed up in the battle gear, that, you know, they've arrested them on the other side. They asked them to leave. Some walked away and got arrested. Some they went in and arrested. And they're dragging the tents out, and they're isolating the hardcore. You know, we can try to watch the feed and see if we can, you know, maybe identify the numbers of the hardcore. But I mean, it's going to be dwindling from the total group. And once that hardcore is isolated in there, then what law enforcement's going to want to do is flank their line. So they're spread out in front. You see it's a line of officers, and the white helmets are protesters. They're going to want to, there's an end to their line. There's a, you know, you go down it and there's a person standing on the end. And so they want to have maybe a snatch team, they call it, a grab team, to go to the end and peel that person off. And now that could erupt in the rest of them leaving the line and trying to fight, or maybe just pushing and shoving. But they try to peel them off the end and make an arrest and take them away. And if they can keep that strength in their line and flank them and start pulling them off the end, you know, that will be their desire. But I would expect some violence here, because these people are not, they haven't come here, Savannah, dressed with, you know, gas mask, helmets, body armor, you know, and all these defiant statements and picking up weapons and shooting fire extinguishers and firecrackers and bottle rockets. They want to fight. Some of these people want to fight. And so the police don't want to fight, but they're prepared to fight. So, you know, they'd rather just peel them off and arrest them. That would be the best outcome. So I think we're going to see, and, you know, maybe we can, as daylight breaks in L.A., we can maybe estimate the hardcore number. I can't tell from, you know, maybe is it 100, less than 100 of the hardcore members? That's what the officers want to get down to. And they'll have many, many more officers than than the protesters. So when you want to win the battle, you got to get there the first with the most. You got to have the most people, and that's what they have, and they're prepared. And they're also their cadence of the event. You notice the law enforcement cadence is methodical, slow, planned. They have a strategy, tactics. They're shaping the battlefield. You notice they're not shooting gas. They have some stun munitions, and they have some pepper ball and sting ball, but they're not shooting a lot of gas in there, because then they have to deal with all the gas too. And they don't want to have to, all don masks and deal with that if they don't have to.
Jim, you mentioned daylight. That sort of begs the question, was there a strategy for police doing this in the middle of the night, and will daylight potentially change anything if these tensions are still going on at that time?
Well, it would probably help the officers, in their strategy, because by the time it breaks here shortly, they're going to have it whittled down. And, people that are involved in crime generally, or even civil disturbance, violence, they like the cover of darkness. They can run away and hide in a dark corner or something. Daylight doesn't give them that little advantage. Now, here we see officers making an arrest. So they're making an arrest right here. They got one or two right there. They've peeled off the line. One with a yellow helmet, one with a red helmet. See, they've peeled them right off the line. They're going to make arrests. So, was that the end of the line? I can't tell from the feed, but that's what they're going to want to do. Start peeling them off on the flank where they don't, they're not as thick, and make an arrest. So you see all the zip ties that the officers have. They're prepared to arrest every last person there. And I'm sure within a few hours they will have that done.
On the left side of your screen now, you can actually get a little bit more of an understanding of the scale of this. It looks like on the far left is one of those tents that has been taken down by police, but you can see quite a bit more still there in the center of the lawn, things we're not able to see from the vantage point that we've seen throughout the morning. Jim Kavanaugh, thank you very much for being with us. Please stick with us. We'll be talking with you throughout the morning. We're now going to listen in to our Los Angeles affiliate, KNBC, and hear their reporting from the ground.
Entire university had to close today because of the dangers that this encampment apparently had threatened on this university. So this is a very, very serious situation, and it was a very, very tense night. And the bubble popped when they finally went in. We knew it was going to happen, and we knew that it was finally going to take place, and they quickly, again, methodically got this encampment down. They got through the barriers so they could look these people in the eye and see what they're dealing with. And so now that is why when you say pulling things off of them, they're pulling whatever they're using to protect themselves. They are locked arm in arm right now. And this will be a standoff, but it seems as if whatever they were using, whatever pieces of material, tents, whatever, tables to protect themselves, they are right now they've taken most of it away from them. So the only thing that they have right now is each other as they stand arm in arm. These are the final members of an encampment that formed 7 days ago, that has been told that it was unlawful, that has been told it was a violation of university policy, and that it had stopped being a place of peaceful activism. And that is why you see CHP from across the state of California in riot gear that has arrived here to take those who do not willingly disperse. The options were given throughout the night to willingly disperse. These are the people that have not left. Some have left on their own. Some, ran out. Some found their way out. Some actually did leave voluntarily, but these are the ones that remain, and the ones who are not willing to leave and not willing to disperse, and that will have to face consequences. And depending their association with the university, then that will remain to see what those consequences are.
Robert, quick question for you. As we see police moving in, the barriers being taken down, people being arrested, have they been able to stop more people from coming in and joining this encampment? Do they have other barriers set up to prevent this from getting any worse?
You know, that's an excellent question, but there is no one that is coming into that we see that is going to become part of this encampment. What you may see are demonstrators that would have tried, as we saw in the beginning, to block access from the law enforcement that's here, from CHP, but no one here because, Robin, Adrian, this encampment no longer exists. Once these people are taken into custody, this area will be cleaned up. And you're like, well, Robert, how long could this encampment have possibly gone on if the police didn't intervene? What was the plan here? It was a question we asked initially. And we went to them and said, what's the plan here? The very first day when we went into that quote-unquote media check-in. Well, we're going to be here until June 14th. Why June 14th? That's when the quarter ends. And most of these, if they're students, have to go home. So they were going to be here until June 14th. And it was going to be a matter of would the university allow them to stay until June 14th. But within the course of just a matter of days, this week-long encampment, from the time it started on Wednesday, escalated into something that got very, very ugly for a lot of people who were just trying to be members of this university and try to be productive in this community. And for some reason, there are obstacles put in their way, whether those obstacles were human blockades that didn't allow them to go to class, or whether those obstacles were something that turned more violent. It got so ugly on Monday that finally the chancellor said that was the darkest chapter in UCLA's history. This is over. What you are looking at right now is they are about to put the final period on this chapter, and this book is about to be done.
A powerful statement there, Robert, and I know a lot of people were wondering, yes, when was this going to end when we saw that violent outburst yesterday? So again, we have seen police come in and start to break up some of these encampments. It is just about 5 a.m. right now here on Today in LA. If you're just joining us, we are live on the campus of UCLA, where police started using flashbangs to disperse the protesters, break up the encampment. They've also been making arrests as they take down the tents that have been set up, the tables that have been set up, even some of those metal barriers, the plywood that has essentially been set up as walls. That's all getting taken down right now, and people are being detained. Robin?
Yes, completely different what we're seeing now compared to when we first started at 4 o'clock this morning, or earlier this morning in the 2 and 3 o'clock hour. And it's not just students. We also saw faculty being taken into custody as well. And we're here.
Top of the hour here on NBC News Now. We are continuing to watch that coast-to-coast crackdown on college campuses nationwide. Police activity ramping up after another night of violence. Officers in California seen tearing down that pro-Palestinian encampment at UCLA while sending a stark message to protesters: leave or face arrest. We've got team coverage as lawmakers on Capitol Hill greenlight new legislation on anti-Semitism. Top of the hour here on NBC News Now. We are continuing to watch that coast-to-coast crackdown on college campuses nationwide. Police activity ramping up after another night of violence. Officers in California seen tearing down that pro-Palestinian encampment at UCLA while sending a stark message to protesters: leave or face arrest. We've got team coverage as lawmakers on Capitol Hill greenlight new legislation on anti-Semitism. Also this morning, that controversial Civil War-era abortion law, one of the strictest in the nation, narrowly repealed by lawmakers in Arizona. The two state Republicans who joined Democrats in the decision, causing a party-wide panic ahead of a critical election. And it's your run-of-the-mill English pub nestled in a quiet London street, but it's now become an international tourist destination, all thanks to the one and only Taylor Swift. Good to have you with us. We begin this hour with stunning developments at UCLA, where police in riot gear using flashbang grenades moved in to break up a pro-Palestinian encampment. We are continuing to follow the chaos that's unfolding at UCLA for a second night in a row.
Police arrived on campus to disperse the encampment 24 hours after violence broke out between the pro-Palestinian demonstrators and counter-protesters. But the police were met with resistance, leading to a tense clash.
Let's get right to our Steve Patterson, who's been covering the violence for us through the night there in L.A. all morning long. Steve, what's the situation like right now?
You know, it's interesting. Police have pushed in all in a very swift motion, using non-lethal weaponry, using those flashbangs, using some of the gas. It was very swift. It happened as we were talking live. And now sort of as part of the reclamation process, they formed their own fence line here, pushing us back out of the zone. Police now sort of holding a line. As you can see, it's very far back. I'll let our cameramen walk up toward the line. But police have kind of established a line with what I would call the most hardcore element of the protesters that are still left in there. The people wearing hard hats, the people that have fashioned shields, the people that are using plywood to try to keep vision outside of police range, the people that are literally pushing back against police, and the people that periodically are getting yanked out of that crowd and put into zip ties and detained and taken away. That crowd remains. Their arms are locked. They're chanting some of the same things that we've heard since we've been here almost a week solid. Free Palestine, free Palestine. They continue to do that, and as the conversations I've had with a few of them, no matter what, they say they are not leaving for anybody. What that means in the next 6 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, in the next 30 minutes, I'm not sure, but they continue to, again, push this line out to do, I think, what they are going to do next, which is to maybe forcibly even go in a little harder to that remaining hardcore crowd. Again, we don't know how many people that is. It appears to be pretty small now. I'm looking at that sort of line of eyes. You can see the hard hats back there. It is just a few people who are deciding we are sticking it out no matter what you say, no matter what you do. As police, are going to make a decision as to how exactly they want to deal with those remaining people so they can totally clear out this camp, which remains alive despite how hard they went in a little bit earlier. Guys, back to you.
Well, so, Steve, as we've discussed this morning, this heavy police presence comes a day after police were criticized, actually, for being too slow to stop counter-protesters from attacking this encampment. What are we hearing now from students, from university officials, and the authorities about this?
I think officials, first of all, let's start with them. Many are calling for a full-throated investigation as to what happened that night because of the police response. Because when counter-protesters came, and we have a situation here where police they're sort of marching through this gate with zip ties, and they're going up to this bush. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is about. We may have to move back as we're talking. But again, to the other night, when this really all started with counter-protesters and protesters facing off. I mean, counter-protesters came in here almost as hard as the police did. They just didn't have the same force level as the police did, which led to fighting. It led to violence. It led to situations where people were getting beat up for minutes and an elongated period of time where violence was persisting for hours. And so people, students were sort of worried because they wondered why wasn't anything done to call more police. And how come it took so long for them to get there? This was a situation in which, and we'll sort of push back in here. This was a situation in which police, had to have known this was happening. The university was supposed to call outside police forces to get them on scene as soon as possible, but it was literally hours before they showed up. And then, as many reported, it was even longer than that for them to actually intervene between counter-protesters. That sort of bled into this, which is the fact that they're declaring this whole area unlawful, that it shouldn't be here, and then beyond that declaration, deciding it was unsafe. And once the decision to be made, to call this an unsafe area, to say that not only for the people here, not only for the counter-protesters that come here, but for our entire student body, this shouldn't exist on campus. We knew that this night was only a matter of time before police would come in here hard. So that's exactly what's happening now, and we're sort of watching and waiting to see how exactly it all ends.
Steve, how has all this been impacting just day-to-day life and classes at UCLA? I mean, what are you hearing from the vast majority of students who are just not part of these demonstrations? They're there for their education.
Yeah, obviously, many people have opinions. Their school is all over international news for this one little area of campus. Now, it's not necessarily like literally a little area. It's just a pretty massive size for an encampment that was created by faculty and students and who knows what. But it's little in comparison to the university of this scale and the UC system, which is multiple universities across California. And to think that they have to think about and see their school on TV and read about it on the internet and know that it's always a part of the headlines, I think is first a distraction. I think the literal footprint of it, I mean, this is it's like the main library, one of the main residence halls, one of the main study halls, which is right here on campus, and one of the main quads on campus. This is sort of, at a point in which you would just traverse to get to your classes, is now physically an encampment. So I think there's that part of it too. But I think the main, obviously, thing that people think about is safety. I will say, though, that, just being here and covering this was very much a zone. Right. So at times I was like, I'm tired of live shots. I want to take a break and see what else UCLA is like. If you walk, not too far from here, it's almost like you wouldn't even know anything was going on, save for all the helicopters and all the yelling and screaming, of course, for megaphones. So, there are parts in which totally unaffected. And I think if people were taking online classes or they were part of a graduate program or they were just somewhere off doing their own thing, you might not think about it as much, but it's enough of a distraction. And I think more to the university's point, enough of a safety concern to where they decided they had to shut it down. Guys.
Steve Patterson, we appreciate your continued live shots. Please continue to stay safe.
Thanks, Steve. Let's now bring in Benjamin Kirsten. He's a UCLA student and member of Jewish Voice for Peace. That's a Jewish group that calls itself anti-Zionist and campaigns for Palestinian rights. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. So we understand that you were in the encampment yesterday. Tell us what you saw, what you heard, and then your reaction to this police action that we're seeing right now on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I am here on site. I've spent lots of time in the encampment, there's a lot of movement coming. I may have to adjust my location here.
Please stay safe. Please do so. If you need to move, let us know.
Thank you.
And please feel free to walk as you're speaking with us.
Great. It's clear to me that this encampment would have been allowed to be a peaceful endeavor if not for the continual presence of counter-protesters and now a very large, significant presence of law enforcement. It's an intense scene here. The flashbangs are certainly having an effect, I think, on my processing. And yet what saddens me most is that the university had many chances to take meaningful action and hear out their students' concerns about what matters to them. In this case, pressuring the university to divest and boycott in an effort to end its complicity in an ongoing genocide against Palestinians. And instead, the university chose a course of non-action and now, of course, really substantial action. So I'm hearing that peers and colleagues of mine are being thrown to the ground and possibly hit with rubber bullets. But I'm going to remain here to do my best to keep everyone safe and supported.
Benjamin, what we keep hearing from city leaders, university leaders all around the country is this feeling that there have been these outside groups, so-called outside agitators, who've come in and sort of taken over these encampments. Are you seeing that at UCLA? Do you worry that there are outside groups who really don't share your message, that have sort of hijacked this situation, and that is leading to these increased tensions?
I guess I would just describe it slightly differently. I've certainly seen community support for the encampment, but I would describe the encampment very much as a student-led and organized effort. I think what I've found most concerning is the presence of the rotating presence of counter-protesters, including at late hours of the night, who have thrown fireworks, released mice into the encampment. So I think that while there has been community effort to sustain the encampment. I think that the encampment itself has been student-led and student-organized.
Benjamin, have your friends or peers or anyone that you just mentioned you're in communication with been arrested or detained?
Yes, I can say that some have. I'll be standing by to see where they go, and just once again doing my best to make sure that everyone is as safe and supported as can be.
All right, Benjamin Kirsten, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Let's stay on this and talk now about the situation at University of Wisconsin-Madison with NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett. Maura, good morning. So on our screens right now, we are still showing UCLA campus, but when we yesterday had viewers watching the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a clash between protesters and police on that campus, tell us on what grounds were the police brought in to dismantle the encampment and the situation on campus this morning.
Yes, and it's a very different scene than what you're seeing at UCLA or Columbia University, for example. But here at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, it's a different picture and a different timeline because they only started their protests, their encampments, Monday of this week. And over the span of the next 2 days leading up to yesterday morning, just around this time, police came in to remove the tents, the encampment on the quad here just outside the library. And they did it on the grounds of the fact that there's a state law and a school code that says that tents and camping on campus is not permitted. The university has said repeatedly that they respect the students' rights for free speech, but that the tents are a safety concern. And so police came in early yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, to remove the tents. And that's when we saw this intensity and conflict between the group of about 100 to 200 protesters and then several dozen police. They physically went up against each other and pushed the police off campus, but because of or pushed them back off the lawn, and so there was some injuries reported. There was more than 30 arrests cited. 4 officers were injured. Now this morning, it's a different scene. I will say I drove through campus yesterday before I got rerouted to another story, and protesters had already started putting tents back up at around 11 a.m. Wednesday. Those tents remain still behind me. There's a couple police we've seen from a distance. No altercations this morning, but kind of just surveying the scene as police have said that they wanted to make sure that the protest remained calm. But given the resistance we've seen from the university about any leeway on the fact that these tents remain here, that's something that we're looking to see if there's any further development today, because the university insists that the tents being here, there's about 25 or so, are still not safe, guys.
Maura, what are you hearing from some of the student protesters? How have they reacted to the police response there?
The protesters are frustrated, and they said that they feel that the police were sent to intimidate them. They said that it wasn't necessarily about the fact that they're protesting, but more so they feel offended by the fact that they think police are reacting to the content of the protest. I wanted to hear from one protester yesterday that our affiliate WMTV spoke with to hear a little bit more on that stance.
The issue here is not the means of protest itself, it is the message of the protest. The University of Wisconsin-Madison is refusing to end its complicity in the genocide ongoing in Gaza. Students here today were fine until the cops came onto campus, started attacking people, started attacking students, faculty, staff, community members, and that's what escalated the situation.
These student organizers have circulated a script on social media to call public authorities, to call for their friends and other students that had been arrested yesterday to not be charged. Again, 4 people were charged, about more than 30 were cited. And they're also really pushing the university to have a meeting. The university had previously said, if you clear out the tents, we're happy to meet with you. That obviously happened for a brief moment yesterday, but the tents are back. And so it's unclear whether those meetings between student organizers and the university itself will go forward today, guys.
All right, Maura Barrett, thank you very much for your reporting from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
As all this plays out on campuses, on Capitol Hill, the House of Representatives has passed a bill with overwhelming bipartisan support aimed to combat anti-Semitism.
The bill, which is called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, passed yesterday with a 320 to 91 vote. 21 Republicans and 70 Democrats voted against the measure.
NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now with more on this. Julie, good morning. So explain to us, first of all, what's in this bill that did get support from both sides of the aisle. It will now head to the Senate. What's the significance of this legislation?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. It would expand the definition of anti-Semitism under U.S. law to be in line with the definition of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. this is a definition that was perhaps too broad for some of those that voted against it for very different reasons. For example, you have progressives like Pramila Jayapal, who didn't support it, who said she would have supported another version of this bill. It's one we had reported earlier this month. It was introduced by the co-chairs of the Anti-Semitism task force on Capitol Hill, like Jackie Rosen and other House members and Senate members, for example. Senator Chuck Schumer, though, who's of course the majority leader in the upper chamber, did not say how the Senate plans to take up that House-passed bill, if we plan to put another one on the floor. But clearly, this is all just an overarching theme of Congress trying to tackle the problem of rising and growing anti-Semitism, especially as we continue to see these protests, many of them peaceful, but some of them turning violent, some of them turning anti-Semitic as well.
Julie, while we have you, let's talk about the efforts from some House Republicans to oust Mike Johnson as Speaker. We know Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is looking to force a vote on the matter next week. Where do things stand right now?
Yeah, I was at that press conference yesterday. It was 40 minutes long. She was there with one of the supporters of her effort, Rep. Thomas Massey. He's a congressman from Kentucky. The two of them talked to reporters for quite a while. They were telling us all about their efforts, how they plan to officially call for this motion to take Speaker Johnson out of the job next week. They plan to use the recess, they said, to have other colleagues think about their actions, including putting Democrats on the spot to see if they really are going to save Johnson like they said they would. Take a listen to what Greene had to say.
I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. It's the right thing to do for America. It's time to clean house and get our conference in order and get ready to support President Trump's agenda.
Now, Greene's effort is not popular, not among Democrats, of course, and not among Republicans either. So far, she has two other members standing beside her, supporting her. The question that I asked her, though, that she was not able to answer is, if not Mike Johnson, then who? She and Massey, the other congressman, said they have a list of names. They wouldn't name a single one, but they said anybody is better than Johnson, who they've accused of working with Democrats by putting aid to Ukraine on the floor, by putting that FISA surveillance bill on the floor, and by funding the government, guys.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Julie. Well, former President Trump will return to a New York City courtroom this morning for his hush money criminal trial. He spent the off day from court yesterday back on the campaign trail, holding events in Michigan and Wisconsin. Mr. Trump called out the presiding judge in his trial, as well as the charges against him, despite another gag order hearing scheduled for today. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander joins us from Washington with the latest. Hi, Peter. Good morning.
Savannah, good morning. The race for the White House, as you've seen, again, a juggling act for Mr. Trump between the trail and his trial, wrapping up what were his first campaign rallies since his criminal proceedings began. And this comes as President Biden here is fiercely criticizing his rival, warning about what he calls Mr. Trump's vision of anger, revenge, and retribution.
Ahead of his return to a New York courtroom this morning, former President Trump is trying to make up for lost time on the campaign trail, holding a rally doubleheader in critical swing states Wisconsin and Michigan, where he falsely accused President Biden of orchestrating a legal conspiracy against him, even though he was indicted by a New York grand jury.
I got to do two of these things a day. You know why? Because I'm in New York all the time with the Biden trial.
Mr. Trump also taking new swipes at the judge in his hush money trial.
I don't think there's ever been a more conflicted judge, crooked and conflicted.
The same judge who earlier this week slapped the former president with a $9,000 fine for repeatedly violating a gag order that prohibits him from attacking witnesses and jurors, and a warning that he could face jail time in the future. At a private fundraiser Wednesday, President Biden slammed Mr. Trump's efforts to capitalize on the anti-war protests sweeping college campuses, denouncing the Trump presidency as chaos and telling donors Trump is trying to make the country forget just how dark and unsettling things were when he was president, but we will never forget. Mr. Trump in Wisconsin praising the NYPD for its response at Columbia University.
The police came in exactly 2 hours. Everything was over. It was a beautiful thing to watch. New York's finest.
The White House just announced President Biden will deliver a speech next week at a Holocaust memorial ceremony, addressing the nationwide rise in anti-Semitism. The president also highlighting Mr. Trump's recent comments to Time magazine, where the former president suggested he would ignore a law forbidding the use of military force on civilians as part of his plan to target undocumented immigrants, and refusing to rule out the possibility of political violence if he loses the election again this fall.
Now back to the courtroom. This morning's hearing is going to kick off focusing on 4 additional violations of the judge's gag order, nearly all of them having to do with Mr. Trump's taking aim at his former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen. Unlike last time, what's different here is that Mr. Trump did not take these swipes in social media posts. Instead, they were out loud on camera. Then right back to the trial and more testimony about those hush money payments. Savannah.
All right, Peter, thank you so much.
In Arizona, lawmakers are handing a small victory to abortion rights campaigners. The state Senate narrowly voted to repeal a controversial Civil War-era abortion ban that recently became an election year flashpoint. Arizona's Democratic governor is expected to sign that repeal later today. So how did we get to this point? We get more from NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson.
Hey there, good morning. The Arizona governor is expected to sign this repeal into law later today to roll back that controversial 19th century abortion ban in Arizona that would have become one of the country's strictest bans. It's the latest development in this key swing state where abortion access has become a flashpoint ahead of November's election.
New fallout this morning after Arizona's historic repeal of a strict Civil War-era abortion ban. The state Senate on Wednesday rolling back a controversial 1864 law that would ban nearly all abortions with no exceptions for rape or incest, only for the life of a mother. Protesters on both sides heated outside the state's capitol. And inside, shouting from the gallery as 2 GOP lawmakers broke ranks with their party to join Democrats to ban the law, including one Republican married to a state Supreme Court justice who reinstated it. Another Republican who voted against the repeal, playing sound from his daughter's sonogram.
If I vote yes, these heart beatings will be fewer.
Still, it's possible the near total ban could take effect temporarily later this spring because of procedural rules in the state. Arizona's Democratic governor, who has pledged to sign the repeal, with NBC's Dana Griffin.
As governor, I'm doing everything I can to ensure that the 1864 ban doesn't go into effect. It will just increase the level of confusion and fear that exists already.
In Florida, where a 6-week ban went into effect Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris berating former President Trump on the issue.
We witness a full-on assault, state by state, on reproductive freedom. And understand who is to blame. Former President Donald Trump did this.
While in office, Mr. Trump appointed 3 conservative Supreme Court justices who helped overturn the landmark abortion rights ruling Roe v. Wade. Since then, more than a dozen states have put tougher abortion laws in place.
The original aim was to take abortion out of the federal government and move it into the individual states and let the people decide.
Now, once this Arizona repeal does go into effect, and again, that could be later this summer, only after the state's legislative session ends, Arizona will be governed by a 2022 law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks. But Arizona and 10 other states will probably take up the issue of abortion access in ballot initiatives come November. Back to you.
All right, Hallie Jackson, thanks so much. Time now for weather, and the chance for more severe storms is going to continue today.
Angie Lastman is watching it all for us. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. No surprise, it's the middle of the country that we will be closely watching here with the chance for some strong storms again today. The area that we're watching, much smaller than what it has been in past days, but still, we've had quite an active morning already. Your satellite and radar showing some of those thunderstorms that are working through parts of the upper Midwest. We've got the southern plains already ramping up some of that thunderstorm activity this morning, but it's later this afternoon as we build that heat and humidity that we start to see some of the fuel for more of those thunderstorms. All the hazards are going to be on the table today, but the most likely is going to be the large hail, 2 inches or hen egg-sized hail. And that's going to be centered across parts of Texas and stretching into just a sliver of Oklahoma. But you can see the general thunderstorms are going to be from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Great Lakes, Kansas City, St. Louis, Little Rock, Houston, all included in that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have some rumbles of thunder and some interruptions of afternoon plans when it comes to that. Here here's the system that we're watching and how it plays out through at least the next day or so. We're also going to be seeing heavy rain accompanying this. So not just the stronger storms with those severe threats, but also the threat of flooding is going to remain for today and tomorrow with repeated rounds of this heavy rain, specifically across parts of Texas, stretching into Oklahoma. We do see still some flood watches and flash flood warnings that are in effect for 9 million people right now. Again, Texas and Louisiana are kind of the bullseye for that. But a big chunk of this area that we're going to watch through the day today and even tomorrow could see the potential for some flash flooding. Specifically, we're most concerned around the Houston area, points north of that. Rainfall rates impressive yet again. I know I sound like a broken record from the past days as well. We've got rainfall rates of 2 to 4 inches possible, and we could pick up a good chunk of rain here in some of these same spots. So areas that already have really swollen rivers, we likely will see some major flood stages happening across Texas for rivers there. Lufkin, Houston, those are the spots that you'll see maybe 2 to 3 additional inches of rain. But a big part of this section of the country is going to pick up some additional rain in the range of maybe 1 inch to 2 inches. So we'll be watching all of that. And how about these temperatures? A bit of a different story along the East Coast, where 90s are on tap for Richmond, upper 80s for Nashville, running 10, 15 degrees above normal. But parts of the upper Midwest, that cool air is starting to sink south, and we've got 54 on tap for Minneapolis. So quite the opposite kind of story for folks there and across parts of the northern Rockies, where our temperatures will be running 10 to 15 degrees below normal, guys. But along the East Coast, we stay quite warm, upper 70s tomorrow in D.C.
All right. Thank you, Angie. Appreciate
lovely.
it.
Thank you. All right, there's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the unassuming London pub that is now at the center of the Swiftie universe.
And staying in Britain, a royal birthday celebration. Princess Charlotte, the only daughter of Prince William and Princess Kate, turns 9. Got more on that up next. Welcome back. It is a joyful day for Britain's royal family. Princess Charlotte, the only daughter of Prince William and Princess Kate, turns 9 today.
The royal family is celebrating her birthday after a year where they have been dealing with multiple health scares. Just yesterday, though, Prince William told a royal fan the whole family is doing well. NBC international correspondent Megan Fitzgerald joins us now from Buckingham Palace. Megan, good morning. Tell us more about Princess Charlotte's special day.
Good morning, guys. Well, look, typically Princess Kate would stay up late into the night, sometimes even till midnight, baking her kids a cake for their birthday. Now, of course, we don't know if that was the case this year because of her health issues. But what we know for sure is that these special occasions are a needed distraction for the royal family.
This morning, another royal birthday. Princess Charlotte, Prince William, and Princess Kate's only girl turning 9 today. And like in years past, Kensington Palace releasing this new photo to mark the special occasion, just taken days ago in Windsor by her mother.
We know that this family, particularly at the moment with Kate's cancer, is really safeguarding privacy. So for them to be actively giving out photographs of their children is significant.
But it's these images that show Charlotte's striking similarities to her mom, Kate, when she was younger, and even the late Queen when she was a girl. Princess Charlotte is third in line to the throne, the young princess growing up into quite the little lady, usually seen trying to keep the often rambunctious Louis in line, from telling him to stop his cute antics during Trooping the Color last June to nudging him on the balcony. Not afraid to give direction to her big brother as well. It's safe to say she's fulfilling her duties as big sister, and of course, she's her parents' favorite daughter, with a very special bond with her father since the very beginning.
She's been a little joy of heaven.
A sweet relationship that's been evident through the years, a close connection to the Princess of Wales too, following her lead and conducting this orchestra in Wales, even copying her mother's mannerisms. But it hasn't been an easy last year for the royal children, forced to grapple with their mother and grandfather's devastating health news. Prince William reassuring well-wishers this week. But if there's one thing for sure, it's that Charlotte and her brothers bring so much light to the royal family, even in their darkest times.
Now, Buckingham Palace has not released any new information about Princess Kate's health. And even though we are seeing the king returning to public-facing duties, the palace says that his cancer treatments continue. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Megan, thank you so much.
Still to come, tackling the rise in anti-Jewish hate, one difficult question at a time.
After the break, the former NFL star and the activists who are leaning into uncomfortable conversations for a new book explaining anti-Semitism at what is a frightening time for many Jews. They are joining us next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, the war in Gaza has led to a surge of hate speech, including anti-Semitism.
Last year, the Anti-Defamation League recorded nearly 9,000 incidents of anti-Jewish hate across the U.S. That is a 140% increase from the year before, with levels rising sharply after October 7th. Well, now a former NFL football player has teamed up with Israel's former special envoy for combating anti-Semitism in a new book, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew by Emmanuel Acho. And Noah Tishby takes a closer look at the history of hatred that Jewish people have faced and asks how we got to this point.
That's right. And we have the authors here, actress and activist Noah, along with NFL linebacker Emmanuel. Thank you both very much for joining us this morning and having this important conversation. Emmanuel, I'll start with you because Joe just read the title of this book, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew, but you had actually written a New York Times bestseller, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And my understanding is that you reached out to Noah 2 years?
2 years prior.
Prior to October 7th. Tell us about how this came to be.
Well, I realized that proximity, it breeds care, and distance, it breeds fear. And so the best way for us to dismantle some of the fear, some of the tension in society, is if we get closer to one another intellectually. How in the world can I navigate anti-Semitism if I can't define anti-Semitism? It's not as simple as racism, as Noah eloquently states in the book. It's both looking down at a Jew and also looking up at a Jew as far as perceiving Jewish people to be in power mischievously, if you will. And so reached out to Noah 2 years ago because I had questions. Are Jewish people white? Why is it anti-Semitic to assume that Jewish people have power in society? What is Zionism? What is anti-Semitism? Let's unpack all of these things, and that's what we did.
And those are tough questions, and you promise no question is off limits. I mean, what are some of the most powerful questions, Noah, that you heard?
So the bottom line is that we actually don't hold back on anything. So I think in society today, people are very bothered with safe spaces and trigger warning, and they don't want to go there. They don't want to educate themselves. They basically get trained on TikTok and on social media to think things through, to not think things through. And we wanted to sit down and take things all the way, and we did. So I would say there are conversations about, did the Jews kill Jesus? Are the Jews white? We talk about stereotypes, Jewish stereotypes, Zionism, everything that people really don't want to talk about. And we just sit there, and once there's a level of love and authenticity and a willingness to converse, you can't get hurt. So there's nothing that you can say that would hurt another person if you're actually listening from a place of understanding. And that's what we did. And we wrote this book very conversationally, and it's also fun and entertaining, and there's a lot of tension there, and we really go there. We really go there.
But what you're describing, it sounds difficult. I mean, it sounds like to replicate, in real life, if you're not two people who are embarking on an endeavor like this together, to ask questions that you might be scared to ask questions that you might be scared or even just offensive from the baseline. How did you do that, and how would you encourage other people to do that?
Well, let me preface by also saying, in a very real part of the book fell apart. There was a 3-week period where we did not speak. The book, we didn't think it would be written. It's a true story. Chapter 16 is called How the Book Almost Didn't Happen. Chapter 1 is How the Book Happened. We so vehemently disagreed on a matter that the book just completely fell apart. I'm sharing that with y'all vulnerably because that's real life. In real life, you'll disagree. In real life, you'll have uncomfortable conversations. In real life, you may walk away from a friendship, walk away from a family member, walk away from a business partner, walk away from a romantic partner. But so long as there is grace, respect, admiration there, the disagreement, it won't prevail. And so we just had grace. We had admiration for one another. And though we walked away, we found a way to walk back for the betterment of society.
And this is now, from what people are telling us, is one of the most interesting parts in the book because it's real. And it shows that there's an actual conversation there. So we're not going to go into it and share what happened because we want you all to read it, but it happened after October 7th, and it was a severe disagreement. And literally, we walked away. I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Can't do this. Very upset. And once we decided, first of all, we both realized that this book existing is more important than me being upset or than anything that can be annoying to either of us, right? This is a very important book right now in our cultural moment. And we decided to kind of talk it through, as you do with a family member, with a friend. And as soon as we kind of got to the other side, we're sitting down, and I say to Emmanuel, I'm like, you know, this is going in the book. He's like, which part of it? I'm like, all of it. And he said yes, and it's in there, the whole thing,
and it's
warts and all.
It's a reminder, if we talk and we listen, we can get through almost anything. Yes. Emmanuel, you have a saying, being ignorant is unfortunate, but it is morally irresponsible to stay ignorant. Talk more about that and why that's so important.
We're all ignorant. And it is okay to acknowledge we are all ignorant. To some degree, you should be. I cannot walk in Noah's shoes. Noah cannot walk in my shoes. So being ignorant, it's just unfortunate, but it is okay. But once you stay ignorant, now that's the issue. My coach would tell me, hey, it's not a big deal if a bird happens to poop on your shoulder, but if you let it stay on your shoulder, that's the problem. And so I want everybody watching this to give your heart, give your mind the space, the vulnerability to acknowledge, wait, you know what? I don't know everything there is to know about somebody that doesn't look like me, but I have the ability to know. So let me choose that. Let me learn so that I can better love and serve others around me.
Yeah. And so much of what we're seeing today on college campuses, for example, comes from ignorance. These people, some of them, the ones that are actually students on college campus, are so misguided on so many levels. It breaks the heart. And the thing is that in society today, it's okay, as Emmanuel said, it's okay to not know, but also don't be vocally speaking up or like fighting for something that you don't know anything about. So if you're on college campus right now and you're calling for the destruction of the world's single Jewish state, you are bunching in the government of Israel with the Jewish people all over the world, you actually been brainwashed to believe that Zionism necessitates a genocide of Palestinians, which is completely untrue and very similar to blood libels of the 1400s, then you might want to look at your movement and realize that you don't know everything that there is to know. Go and educate yourself.
And some of the protesters, of course, that we're seeing have been peaceful, and then this is also where we're seeing people not listen to each other, maybe, right? Where we see some of that happen. Thank you both so much for sharing this book with us. Thank you for sharing the conversation. I'm so curious to read chapter 16 now.
They're here, so we know how it ends.
You know, so many people asked us, actually, after they read the book, they're like, how are you all still friends?
Wow.
Well, there you go.
That's a tease.
It's a lesson for all of us. Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew is out now. Congratulations again to both of you. We appreciate you coming and having a conversation with us.
We really do. We really do. It's an important one. Well, over 20 years ago, a controversial study caused many women to ditch hormone replacement therapy after the results challenged the drug's safety for treating menopause symptoms.
But now new research is updating that advice, potentially giving reassurance to millions. According to a study published in the medical journal JAMA, the benefits of hormone replacement therapy for treating menopause outweigh the risks.
Joining us now for more on this is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Dr. Azar, good morning. Always great to see you. So explain what has changed with this new analysis. What should women know who were previously afraid maybe to take hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah, so some of this data, guys, is stuff that we've been following for the last couple of years, and we've kind of had a hint that maybe some of the risks that we talked about 22 years ago were, exaggerated, or maybe there was an explanation for them that may not apply to women today. And basically, it's this, that, all those decades ago, there was a concern that taking hormone replacement therapy was increasing the risk of heart events and pulmonary embolism and breast cancer. But those studies, those original studies, were done in women who were older, who were kind of already sort of pre-selected for those side effects. And what we now know is that women who are in their 50s, in that sort of early postmenopausal state, if taken appropriately, can actually benefit very, very significantly with those really, really bothersome symptoms like the night sweats and the hot flashes and everything, and memory issues, if you will, and can do so safely. It's always important to remind people, though, that this always has to be a conversation with your doctor, because there are some people who would be perhaps at an increased risk of having blood clots and things like that who shouldn't. But this is a very, very, very good, first move away from that strong thing that we can't be on hormone replacement therapy.
So, Dr. Azar, the study found hormone replacement treatment's relatively safe option for women under 60. Yeah. What are some of the benefits and what might make someone higher risk for this?
Right. So I think that probably, and I have a little bit of a bias here as I treat women with osteoporosis, but it is so healthy and protective against bone loss. And that's, I think, one of the biggest sort of advantages. I would say sort of rather than saying that hormone replacement will actually help in terms of heart events or cancer protection, I think we can't really say that. What we can say is that the benefit for treating those vasomotor symptoms definitely probably outweighs the risk in most people. I think the biggest risk factor, guys, is anyone who has any underlying clotting abnormalities that could increase their risk for blood clots and or potentially breast cancer. Those are the two groups that I would be cautious about. But again, most women would probably benefit from taking this. And again, it's only a couple of years in your 50s. Past age 60, the risk likely does not or does outweigh the benefit.
And Dr. Natalie, quickly before we let you go, for those who this would be risky for, are there alternatives?
There are. There are certain medicines that we use to treat other conditions that can be useful to treat these. And also, a medicine that was actually approved about a year ago by the FDA, which was a novel treatment, really, that works on the brain center for temperature regulation, can be quite effective. So there are non-hormonal treatments. Most experts would say that the hormonal therapy is really the most effective therapy, but if there's an absolute contraindication, there are other things you can do. You have to speak to an expert who knows about this and who understands the data and can explain it to you effectively.
All right, Dr. Natalie Azar, great information as always. Thanks so much. Coming up, it's the Great Date Update.
New numbers show many swiping singles are getting ready for a burst of spring cleaning on the apps, looking to spruce up their profiles. So if you're looking for love, how can you stand out from the other fish in the sea? We've got some tips next. May is a great month for some spring cleaning. For most of us, it will be our houses, but for the nearly 1/3 of Americans who have an online dating profile, experts say this is a great time to give it a refresh.
According to a new study by Whirlpool, yep, the appliance company, maybe you've got a washer dryer, 83% of people who are using dating apps plan to update them this spring.
Why are they researching that? All right, Damona Hoffman is the host and producer of the Dates and Mates podcast, as well as the author of the book F, the Fairy Tale, and of course, my college roommate. She joined us now with some tips on how to clean up your profile. Damona, good morning. Good to see you, my friend. All right, so let's start with the first thing folks notice, the photos. What kind of pictures are going to attract better quality matches?
Well, I've always said you need to tell your story through the photos that you choose. And it's really interesting looking at the results of this Whirlpool study and social experiment, what really matters to people. The bottom line, I'm seeing that people really want to feel cared for right now. So when we look at this social experiment, it's wild, Joe and Savannah. It's wild because they took 7 single men in Chicago and asked them to swap out their usual photos, like the fish pics and the gym selfies, those common photos that a lot of men use as, thirst trap photos. They asked them to swap them out for photos of them caring for their house, doing household chores, doing the dishes, cooking. And it's incredible. All of the men in the study said that they had more matches and more engagement. And 4 of the men in the study moved into relationships. And that really proves to me something that I've thought for a long time as a dating coach of over 15 years, that the way people present themselves and what they think they need to put out there, it's not the same as Instagram. It's really more about making that connection.
So maybe Whirlpool's hoping.
Now we know why Whirlpool did the study. You can buy our
Men
appliances
are going to go buy some dishwashers and be like on their profiles. Damona, why do you think it is that? Because I get that taking care of yourself is attractive, no question. Taking care of yourself, your home, therefore, hopefully that translates over to others as well. But I think you also kind of want to understand what somebody's about, right? Do they like skiing? Do they like fishing? So kind of walk us through, you want to see the hobbies, but then we have this new information from this study.
So I say in F the Fairy Tale that you want to have the 3 C's. The 3 C's are color, context, and character. The color is strategic. It's just to stand out. So you want to think of swiping from not your own point of view, but the point of view of the person that you hope to match with. So how are they going through the dating profiles? Swipe, swipe, swipe. If you see color, you're going to stop and pay attention. Then character, and that's showing your personality. And then there's context, and that's what you were just talking about, Savannah. That's really showing what your life is about. And this is really a new change that the Whirlpool study has unearthed that is not just about showing you traveling. This is what I always see on profiles. And in the survey that Whirlpool did, they also showed that most singles 18 to 44 preferred these photos of people doing caring things rather than working out or traveling often.
Damona, do you think there's a chore that most folks would find most attractive? How about you?
Well, doing basic household chores did show up in the survey as #1, but then laundry, which is my least favorite. Thank goodness my husband doesn't mind doing it. And then dishes, in that order. Those were the chores that people were looking for their matches to be able to do effectively.
That makes sense. My job is to empty the dishwasher and to fold the clothes, but I don't do the first part of the process.
Interesting.
How about you?
We kind of both do it all. Actually, I always do the laundry.
Okay. So if someone
He's
did
not
the laundry
watching,
for
so I
you?
can absolutely say it does not go well when he does. Things come out a different size or color than when they entered. Yes.
In success, you have children, and as I do, and now I put them to work, so they do those household chores for us.
There you go. Very good. All right, Damona Hoffman, always good to see you.
Wait, importantly, what did Joe do when you lived together?
House.
Was he good at these
Joe's
chores?
very tidy. Joe's very tidy.
Okay.
Our bathroom was
Not
pretty
the problem
clean.
roommate.
We had
There
one
were others.
bathroom for 5 people, so it was.
Why? I don't ever remember hearing that.
Oh yeah, it was. But
I guess, yeah,
we
we
had
had-
a schedule. We made it work. All right.
Damona,
Thank you,
good to
Damona.
see you. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.